All right, everyone. Welcome back in for another week of Gators Breakdown. This is part of the SEC Breakdown Network, along with David Waters. I'm Mark Rogers, talking about the Florida Gators, of course, each and every week, following a third consecutive win to open up the season against North Texas, 32-0. All right, Dave. Unfortunately, we can't celebrate the win. That was pretty much a given. That the team was going to come out with at least two of those three wins, and Kentucky was not much in doubt. So we move on to week 4 in Tennessee. But the big news is obviously surrounding the quarterback situation. Luke Del Rio leaving the North Texas game with a knee injury. What's the status right now?
Yeah, Mark, right before we came on air, it came out of sources. Gridiron Now had it publicly first that Luke Del Rio will probably miss up to 2 weeks. Target date is to come back when Florida hosts LSU October 8th. So, right now it will be Austin Appleby's job going into the Tennessee game. I thought it was a dirty hit from the North Texas defender. It apparently, if you go back and look at it, this is the second time this year he has been responsible for a play like this. First week of the year, he knocked out the SMU quarterback in similar fashion week 1. So, Jim McElwain was irate. He was on the field, yelling back and forth with the North Texas sideline. But, yeah, as soon as the ball was thrown, it was a deep throw. And I was actually just looking at the offensive line and the quarterbacks. And as soon as I saw it, I said, oh, that didn't look good. And, of course, announcers, 3, 4, 5 seconds later mentioned Luke Del Rio was down, and they showed the replay. And the defender came around the edge. He lost his balance to begin with. He regained his balance, and to me, it really did look like he targeted pretty low to begin with. So, yeah, like I said, Austin Appleby looks like he's going to be, of course, the starter going to Tennessee. Of course, this is just another question in a long line of years that Florida's going to have to deal with a quarterback situation. You go back to 2011, John Brantley goes down and gets hurt. Jeff Driscoll and Jacoby Brissett have to play a good bit. 2013, Jeff Driscoll gets hurt against Tennessee. Tyler Murphy comes in and has to play. And then, then it's just been, the rotating quarterbacks of whoever they thought would play the best between Jeff Driscoll, Treon Harris, and now, and Will Grier last year suspended. Now Treon Harris takes over. So ever since, Tim Tebow's left, it's just been a storyline. It's not just been bad play. It's been injuries. It's been bad play. It's been suspensions like Grier last year. So, yeah, this is just another storyline dealing with quarterbacks that we seem to hit every year with Florida.
So with Austin Appleby, we know that he played with Purdue, and he was pretty much on the field for most of 2 seasons in 2013 and 14. He threw 19 interceptions against 19 touchdowns in those 2 years. We talked about it a number of times in the offseason, Dave. He had the lesser talent around him generally in those games. Purdue's pretty much had the worst team in the Big Ten over the last 4 or 5 years. Pulling up his numbers from his last series of starts in 2014 against the better team. So that means Michigan State. I remember this game well. Purdue lost by 2 touchdowns, but it was deceiving. 45-31. They were down by a touchdown. He took them all the way down the field. They were in the red zone to tie a Michigan State team that was in the top 10 in the country at the time. Threw a pick 6, lost by 14 points. He did throw for 211 yards, 24 of 37 against Michigan State. Pretty good Nebraska team. That doesn't look too good. 18 of 46 for 216 with a couple picks. Wisconsin was a 17 for 37 day against the Badgers, and a loss there with a pick. So those were probably the 3 best teams that he faced his last time as a starting quarterback for Purdue. So, based on what you saw and the scouting reports in spring practice, what can Gator fans expect to see next week?
Mark, what I think they don't have to expect to see is the number of attempts that you mentioned going back to those games there. I don't think Florida with Appleby is going to be throwing the ball 37 to 44 times, especially with these running backs that they've got a stable of 4 deep now that they're going to try. I think Florida, going to Tennessee for his first start, of course they're going to try and run the ball and go off of play action a good bit. That's what they did with Luke Del Rio versus Kentucky, and that seemed to be the style of offense Jim McElwain wants to go this season. As far as going back to what we've seen from Appleby, he's played in the last 2 games. He got some mop-up duty time last week against Kentucky, and then came in after Luke Del Rio injury against North Texas, and stats, pretty non-existent right now. He has some good zip on the ball. Can he take, take some off the ball when he needs to, have some touch passes or whatever? Can he throw the deep ball? That seems, Florida's thrown the deep ball been pretty aggressive, especially when they get around the 50-yard line, cross the 50 this year. Florida likes to seem to, with Luke Del Rio, was taking shots down the field. So it'd be similar. It'll be interesting to see if there's similar play calls with Austin Appleby. We know the reason Luke Del Rio won this job, I think, was because he knew the offense back and forth, front and back, like the back of his hand. Austin Appleby won't know the offense just as good as Luke Del Rio, but his physical tools are probably a little bit better. So can he come around to know the offense enough to where Jim McElwain feels comfortable calling any play as he did for Luke Del Rio? I think that's interesting aspect I think we'll see going against this Tennessee team. It's going to be a hostile environment going in for his first start. I hate that he's making his first start on the road in Tennessee. It's not the ideal situation. The Florida offensive line has to get better. While they have only given up 1 sack after giving up, through 3 games, after giving up 46 last year, a lot of that has been Luke Del Rio being able to get rid of the ball and help the offensive line out a good bit. Del Rio's jersey was dirty last night before he got injured. The pressure was there pretty consistently from the offensive line, giving up the pressure. So it will be interesting to see if the offensive line can show up on the road, give Appleby some time to throw. But I still think it starts with that running game to help with that. Play action, get to slow the opposing defensive line down a little bit to help Appleby. Tennessee's got some injuries that they have to deal with on the defense. So Appleby walks into a little bit more of a suitable situation compared to if Tennessee was fully healthy and not looking like we thought Tennessee would look. They've been struggling a good bit too. So as far as what Tennessee brings to the table, Appleby's walking into a better situation than what we thought maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and if you're looking at not just the competition he has faced in the past and the personnel around him, but the surroundings, most of the venues in the Big Ten can't compare to what he's going to see at Tennessee. Probably the most comparable games he saw, the ones that we ran down against Michigan State and Wisconsin on the road in those games that, you wouldn't put in the Tennessee category in regards to.
Oh yeah, I was going to say one more thing, but go ahead, Mark. Finish your thought. I just have one more.
Just in regards to the number of people in the stands, but 85,000 people at Wisconsin and Michigan State in facing those two in particular. No games against Ohio State or Michigan for Mr. Appleby.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see if he traveled, to the Big House or the Horseshoe or whatever to play games. But I liken this to the situation Georgia had with Grayson Lambert. That's kind of how I see this going a little bit for, of course, but Florida doesn't have Nick Chubb, but I think they have a better defense. So, it's what can you expect, going with a seasoned quarterback who's played a lot, but, like you said, in a different conference and definitely not the stadiums that he's going to play in like Tennessee. So if there's a situation I think, fans can look at to see what we might have, yeah, it may not sound all that great, to compare it to Grayson Lambert, but, Georgia did have 10 wins last year, and this Florida defense, I think, is a little bit better than what that Georgia defense is. So, it's going to have to be, helping the running game and Appleby to use his physical tools along with those Florida playmakers.
It would have been almost impossible for Jim McElwain to spread out the carries any more evenly between 4 running backs against North Texas. 11 for Thompson, Scarlett, and Pirine, 9 for Cronkrite. Obviously, for a lot of coaches, this is a testing out period. If he feels as though he's got a team that's going to ride the defense and the superior athleticism and talent against the inferior foes, hey, let's try guys out. Let's figure out what we've got, and then we're going to distribute the carries much differently against the likes of Tennessee and on down the road. So what did you see yesterday? What's your feel for the rotation right now, Dave?
Yeah, the conventional wisdom is you don't ride with 4 guys, but I don't see which ones they don't give carries to. They've all done good things in different games. Pirine came on against Kentucky as a freshman and really shined in the passing game and running the ball. Thompson last night seemed to get better as the game went on. He's your more physical back, and maybe wear down a defense. But if you got 4 of these guys, it may not be it may not be Thompson wearing them down. It may be Scarlett. It may be Cronkrite. Cronkrite still, to me, the best overall back. He had one of his better showings against North Texas. But Scarlett as well. A nice run to squeeze into the end zone for a touchdown. All 4 scored a touchdown against North Texas. So it's like I said, I'll go back to it. Conventional wisdom says you ride the hot hand and maybe play 1 or 2 backs deep. But which 2 do you pick? You can pick any combination right now, and you would be right. So P. Ryan going. He's a true freshman. They're going to Tennessee. Does McElwain take some carries away from him being a freshman on the road? But the two Jordans have the most experience in the system. But Thompson you looked at as a guy who maybe would be the next big time running back. So as it shakes out right now, I don't see which 2 or 3 get the main bulk of the carries. I think we'll get that answer versus Tennessee, or we still may see all 4. I know that's not really an answer as to what could happen or what may happen, but I really think that will be the case. I hate to see they all bring something to the table, and I think maybe which one of these guys break out versus Tennessee, maybe those will be the ones we see going forward from there on out.
And to your point, Dave, P. Ryan with a 29-yard reception against North Texans. Cronkrite had 3 catches against the Mean Green. Looking at the defense, obviously, Kentucky, despite their issues, it's still an SEC team that's recruited well. There's still some talent out there on offense, and this defense was lights out in that game. UMass was no issue. North Texas, certainly no issue. This defense is putting up remarkable stats through 3 games. And again, is it a huge barometer at this point? No. But are these teams like North Texas and UMass and even especially Kentucky going to go out and score more points and gain a whole lot more yardage against other decent teams? Yeah. So it's pretty impressive what they've done.
Mark, the Gators set a school record for allowing their opponent to only have 53 yards last night against North Texas. That was a school record. So in today's football, where it's offense crazy, I don't care who you're playing. 53 yards that's pretty good. It doesn't matter who you're playing. 53 yards is great. But right now, the Gators are number 1 nationally with 16 sacks. And Mark, we talked about it preseason. I called him out, and he's showing up. Jabari Zuniga has 4 sacks for the Gators, ranking 8th nationally right now. So, the one player I picked out after getting a red shirt, what guy could break out, it was Zuniga on my list, and he's showing out. But also right now, leads the country in yards allowed at 129.7 yards a game, scoring defense with 4.7 points a game, and like I said, sacks. And they've also given up the fewest plays of 10 yards or less at 7. So it's 10 yards or more, sorry. It's the Gator defense right now. They're attacking. They got playmakers all over the field. I think led by that linebacker core of Jared Davis and Alex Anzalone. But this time against North Texas, it was a defensive line who they've kind of been, they were freeing up those 2 linebackers to make a lot of plays. But against North Texas, it was really the defensive line who really came about. Like I mentioned, Zuniga, a young guy, another guy, Ja'Kai Polite, Caleb Brantley, Brian Cox. They were just all in the backfield all night long, hence, the 53 yards they only give up last night. And then, Jalen Tabor and the DBs are, smothering receivers right now. And Marcel Harris finally, got his first interception. So, right, competition does have something to do with this, but you can see the inklings that this is a very, very, very good Gator defense. They get the big first test coming up with the Tennessee and Tennessee's running game. But, from what we've seen so far, they're definitely going to be no worse than what we've seen from, the recent years of Gator defenses. And I love the attacking style. They seem to be a little bit more aggressive than they have been in a couple of years. And going back to Jeff Collins' first year as defensive coordinator, seemed to be a little bit more aggressive than even last year. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they are against the run game of Tennessee. And are they afraid Dobbs can break contain and get the big yardage, much like he did last year? Or do they not really send linebackers to, I do think Anzalone or Davis will be asked to spy Joshua Dobbs a pretty good bit. So that would be something different I think we've seen from the first 3 weeks. But, like I mentioned, the defense travels on the road in the SEC a good bit. So Florida is setting up pretty on the defense is going into the Tennessee game.
Gator Breakdown provides you with in-depth analysis on the Florida Gators, of course, right here on the SEC Breakdown Network. Join David and myself, along with Chad Neepling, Mike Laval, for complete SEC coverage on SEC Breakdown, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, and YouTube. Also, Gator Breakdown, you can catch us on iTunes or the video on YouTube at SEC Breakdown. All right, let's talk about those Tennessee Vols, because you started to give us a little matchup there in terms of what the defense is going to see with Joshua Dobbs. So Tennessee's 3-0 too. They have not been nearly as dominant as I expected in a couple of those games. Obviously, they probably played their best game against Virginia Tech, the best opponent, especially the last three quarters. They pretty much had their way with the Hokies. 11 minutes left to play, Dave. They were up 21-19 on Ohio University. And we know what happened against App State. Josh Dobbs fumbles into the end zone, diving for the go-ahead score in overtime. If somebody else gets that football wearing different colors, who knows what happens in that game. So it's been razor close for Tennessee against inferior foes. Now, the age-old question when we see a team underachieving early in the season, do they flip the switch against the team that matches their talent, or is this going to be something that rides Tennessee the entire season? And I think they're as good in terms of talent as we think they are, but is it going to gel? Is it going to be the complete team that we expect that it could be?
Speaking of gelling, that's probably part of their problem is the offensive line. For some reason, whatever reason, hasn't seemed to gel for Tennessee. The defensive line for Florida, the way they've looked the first 3 weeks and the way the Tennessee offensive line has looked for the first 3 weeks, the Florida defensive line has to be licking their chops right now. It has been a bugaboo for Tennessee. They can't. Josh Dobbs can't get protected. He's running for his life for a good bit. You mentioned the Ohio game yesterday, when Tennessee is trying to do something, I see Josh Dobbs running and trying to avoid sacks, and in the run game hasn't necessarily been there either. They haven't run Josh Dobbs as much as they would like to see, and Josh Dobbs, I think when he's not running as good as he wants, I think it affects his passing game as well. If he's running good, I think the passing game is there as well for Josh Dobbs. So it's a myriad of reasons. They're battling injuries as well going into this Florida game. Cam Sutton's definitely going to miss the Florida game. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, we haven't heard if he's going to miss it. So, we talked about Austin Appleby coming in for Florida, will be his first start. Well, he catches a little bit of break with the injuries Tennessee has on the defensive side of the ball. But it is a wonder of why Tennessee doesn't look like they can't put it together. It does, coming into the season, the most experienced talent, all the starters they had coming back. But for some reason, this hasn't looked in sync. So, a lot of people, of course, question Butch Jones and offensive play calling there. And Mark, you mentioned, is it, are they ready? Are they getting ready for Florida? Has it been a look ahead? I mean, the Battle of Bristol to me was a big event. And they had to, not get Virginia Tech turnover to win that game. But it probably would have been a little bit closer game if they didn't receive all those turnovers that Virginia Tech. Well, I think 5 fumbles, I believe, or something like that. Virginia Tech, was given Tennessee. So, how does Tennessee respond if they don't get the turnovers and they have to fight with that Florida defensive line for 4 quarters? Of course, the trash talk has been there all offseason between Jalen Tabor and the Tennessee offense and the receivers. Besides Josh Malone, what other Tennessee receiver has really done anything? So the Florida defense, it's going to be simple for the Florida defense. Jalen Tabor, you got your man. Quincy Wilson, you got your man. Marcus May, don't get beat deep. You other 8 guys, and one of you linebackers are spying Josh Dobbs. The other guys, your job. You're stopping that run game, and the other 3 guys, Tabor, Wilson, and May, you have the passing game. So it was the run game that killed Florida last year. They were able to escape against Tennessee last year. It was Josh Dobbs' legs that were the big difference last year when Tennessee almost upset the Gators in the swamp. So can it happen again? I think if Florida stops the run game, it would be easy. Not easy sailing, because Florida's going to have some big questions on offense. But if Florida stops the run game, I really, really like their chances to beat Tennessee for a 12th consecutive time.
And just to magnify that situation with 10 minutes left in Knoxville at 21-19 over the Bobcats of Ohio, Tennessee fumbled 5 times. They recovered all of them. If 1 or 2 go Ohio's way, Who knows? They got field position. Maybe they make something happen. It was that close, and it was that close against App State. And the other thing that happened against App State is the thing that you're pointing to, the offensive line issues. They could not average 4 yards a carry against App State. They had a little bit more rushing room. Dobbs 14 for 59, but he had two really big games in the first two games. Alvin Kamara 11 for 67, Jalen Hurd 15 for 61. Really didn't get loose. Decent, somewhat productive rushing attack that you would expect in an SEC game, but they just didn't mow them down and make a MAC team roll over. And something that our buddy Mike LaValle likes to point to, Josh Dobbs, this is never going to be an Ole Miss passing game. They don't need Josh Dobbs to do Chad Kelly things and hit 45-yarders downfield consistently, but they need one or two of those. You mentioned the Josh Malone plays that he's made early in the season. He had the huge one against App State, but yesterday against Ohio, 27 yards to the tight end, Jason Kroom. That's the longest play they could get out of the passing game, and they dropped back and threw it 27 times. That's against Ohio. So again, difficult getting big plays out of this offense too.
Right, and that's going to be the thing. And can Josh Dobbs throw the ball, like you said, Mark, two or three big plays? That's probably enough for Tennessee to have a good chance to win this game versus Florida, because I really think the way Florida's going to play this, if there's big plays there for Tennessee, it's going to be with single coverage, and not much help from Florida secondary. So it's can they get the run game going? I question that with the way Florida's playing and the way Tennessee's offensive line has looked. And Josh Dobbs, there were plays there last year, or not last year, against Ohio. You could see it. He threw a wide open receiver for a first down marker, way left, not even close to the receiver. Another one where a wide receiver was wide open down the field, overthrows him. So even the play calling for Tennessee, in certain points of games have been there, but Josh Dobbs can't hit the pass. And that was the big question coming into the season. We knew that. And if Josh Dobbs would improve with that, Tennessee would push for an SEC East crown and play in the SEC championship game. But he hasn't been able to hit those big plays consistently, and the run game has not been there. So that's why Tennessee hasn't looked like the Tennessee maybe we thought they would. It's given Florida and Georgia a better hope when they see Tennessee play. But both of those teams also have problems of their own. So it starts this week with Tennessee hosting Florida. Game day is going to be there. Game day's mentioned they're going to be there. And there's some stats to go along with that. I believe Tennessee is 0-4 with previous trips of game day to Knoxville when they play Florida. So four losses in a row when game day is there in Knoxville for a Florida game. And, of course, Tennessee has lost 11 in a row to Florida. So everything's trending, of course, the Florida way. But, it's that's kind of a joke there. I hate to look at it that way because, don't count your chickens before they hatch. But, Florida's going to have to show up to play. We know that. Not an ideal situation of going back with a backup quarterback. So we'll see what happens. The fans are going to be ready. It's going to be an ugly butt bath from the fans, for Florida fans and Florida players. But it's a game we've been looking forward for seeing since, February, March of last year.
I don't know exactly how long Game Day's been traveling. The show was on the air for a few years before they started to travel. I think it's been about 20 years. So I'm going to guess most of those wins for the Gators, Mr. Spurrier was on the sidelines, and maybe Heath Schuler or Peyton Manning was the quarterback, because we know what the situation was and what the series looked like when Peyton Manning would take on Florida. It was not pretty. 0-4 for Peyton Manning, and he only snuck into one SEC championship game during that time, and Dave's got a big smile on his face.
Well, it is yeah, we'd have to go back and look at that. But the last one was in 2012 when they were there, and Will Muschamp and his Gators defeated Tennessee. They were there. Game day was there. That was the last time they'd been in Knoxville, I believe. And so it was the last time, of course, they were in Knoxville for a Florida-Tennessee game as well. So that was the last one. So the other three, yeah, you'd have to go back to, I guess, either one of the maybe 2006 for Florida-Tennessee or one of the Ron Zook years. Of course, when Florida-Tennessee early on, in the Zook years was a big game before that game fell apart, before Zook kind of fell apart. And but Jerry, you mentioned, I'm sure at least two of them were probably from the Spurrier former era.
Yeah, so this is pretty much, not to discount Georgia, Dave, but this is the game of the year in the division. These are the two teams that you got the defending champ, you got with the 11 straight victories over the team that everybody is expecting everything to come full circle, all the great recruiting classes to come together in Tennessee to explode and be a national championship contender, and they just haven't shown it through 3 games. But this is one of the big ones in the SEC, and we will see who's going to emerge. Of course, the Vols have personnel issues of their own. No Cam Sutton, definitely rated one of our top 5 cornerbacks in the SEC entering the season. It's undetermined when he's going to be back. Jalen Reeves-Maben should be back, but he's banged up with a shoulder. And defensive back Malik Foreman, unspecified team rules violation, so he will be out for the game against the Florida Gators. Well, Dave, we'll expect a more analysis out of you the rest of the week on Twitter, Facebook, etc. And also, obviously, we got our SEC breakdown show coming up on Wednesday night where we'll really talk it up and maybe drag a pick out of you as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. Joey V and I, we've had these midweek podcasts, so we'll hit up Tuesday night, so to be released later in the week. Like I said, when me and Joey V and Mike Laval will join us as a little enemy territory type of preview with Tennessee for the Gators breakdown later in the week. So yeah, join us there later in the week. We'll have another show really previewing the Tennessee game more than we did here, just a little bit, but. Yeah, it'll be fun, exciting times with Mike getting to talk with 2 Gators about this matchup coming up.
Yeah, that's a must listen right there. That'll be on iTunes for everyone, on YouTube as well. Gators breakdown midweek with Dave, and yeah, that will be good stuff. So again, got to remind everyone, you got to join us on SEC Breakdown, YouTube, Twitter, and on Facebook as well. Gators Breakdown comes your way as part of the network. So for Dave, I'm Mark, and we will see you next time.